Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to ESPN FC Live after what was a Super Sunday in the Premier League, the big one of the day. No, I'm not talking about Ipswich Spurs. We already talked about that. It is Chelsea versus Arsenal. This one had a lot of bearing because of a lot of storylines that I'm going to talk through with Janusz and Elemi on this one, plus how it would affect the title race. Now we know it was even Stevens between Chelsea and Arsenal, 1-1. They're going to have to share the points. Usually, LME will know this when we're talking about London. They like to say West is best, or maybe that's just me because I live out West. But today, they are even indeed. North London and West London. Like I said, 1-1, guys. LME, let me start with you on this one then, because I know I probably shouldn't ask who would be happier, Maresca or Arteta, because nobody really wanted to draw this one. We really did see both sides going after it until the very last seconds of the game. But 1-1, even Stevens, do you think it's a fair result?
A fair result. Let's see. Well, let's forget about the first 45 minutes of Lexus News because that was just forgettable. And the second half, definitely there was more action and both goals came from there. I think this match was the perfect example of how both show some weaknesses and strengths regarding their goals. And this is why I thought it would be a draw on Friday in our preview, because they would cancel each other out. Arsenal, to their point, have needed desperately the services of Martin Odegaard, and he showed it today with that great assist. But at the same time, it was really poor defensive structure from Chelsea's side. Malo Gusto really didn't do that much to come back and cover his side. Robert Sanchez gave Martinelli an acre of space for that goal as well. And then from the Arsenal side, Pedro Neto, what a fantastic goal. But you know that his left foot is his golden piece of power. Why are you giving him a year and a half to take that shot? So there were a few issues from both sides defensively, and that's why I thought they would cancel each other out. If you're asking me who's happier, to your point, I agree. I don't think neither is happy, specifically after Chelsea equalized. They really wanted to take those 3 points. The happier is Liverpool, right? Oh, the happier is Manchester City because this table is so tight. But I think we have to have some perspective here for Chelsea. This is Enzo Maresca's first season. This is a project still in the making for him. This is, by average, the youngest squad in the Premier League. And they're doing pretty well. They're competing and fighting for a Champions League spot, and they have the same points as Arsenal, who, by the way, are trying to win the league. So I think that tells you everything. The happier of the two, if you have to pick somebody, I would say Chelsea. For Arsenal, once again, 9 out of 12 goals they concede in the second half. That's a 75 percentile in the Premier League. That's the highest percentage in the league. So that tells you a lot as well. So, and we have to hold up a second, Janusz, and we have to wait and see what happens with Bukayo Saka for that perspective. But I would say that Chelsea, if you have to pick somebody, is the happier of the two. But Liverpool really is the one sitting down, having a cigar, saying, "Yep, this is great. We're moving along just fine."
That's definitely it. I was just looking at a comment that said, in the game of Chelsea versus Arsenal, Liverpool is winning. And I know that's going to bring Janusz a slight smile, but Janusz, just to pick up on what LME said, not necessarily which manager is happier, but you could tell me that too. But do you think it was a fair result in terms of the ebb and flow of the game?
Yeah, probably fair result. You should have got there right away. Who's happier? You went against it, and then you finally came to conclusion. Of course, Chelsea is much happier. I think the progress of Chelsea is, frankly, I don't want to say scary, but yeah, I guess I just said it. It really is. When you think about everything they said, how young they are, where they were just last season, right? If the result of the last season's game, right, it was 5-0. That tells you everything, the difference between the two teams. And although the difference wasn't huge here, and I could agree that a draw is a fair result, I think you look at this Chelsea team that, it was strong defensively for the most part. I think still, there's some issues, but if I look at Fofana with all the issues he's had over a couple of years, he's looking to be back. I think Gusto is okay. I think it was a good decision today not to start Reece James. Especially lately, he's been starting on the left-hand side. And I think, Alexis, you just told me that Cucurella was named the player of the game, right? Which tells you a lot, but maybe we'll get to it later. So I think, they kept the width very well, Chelsea. Let's face it. They've dealt with Saka and Martinelli fairly well. I know Martinelli ultimately gets that goal, and fair play to him. But if you look at overall where the strength of Arsenal has been, Not just the strength, but the key to their success. It has been in wide positions, and they haven't been good. So yeah, Chelsea has to take that. I think at this moment, and Arsenal, look, they're just lacking the flow, right? Injuries is one thing. I don't want to give this as much of an excuse, but it is in a way. I mean, they've been missing key players here and there. Now Saka, who knows what happens to them? That flow is in there. Declan Rice, I mean, Caicedo owned him in the first half. And I want to say that, knowing that he was, 85-90% ready to play. Maybe he shouldn't have played because he didn't look up properly. And Caicedo just, with a cigarette in his mouth in the first half at the very least. A little bit more better in the second half. So look, it's a draw. Liverpool are happy. I've said it on Friday, right? We were talking about that. I said if Arsenal don't win that game, they don't have a chance. I think I'm changing slightly. A point, it's something. Going away, I don't know if it's over just yet, given that Liverpool have City, Newcastle away, and Everton away after the international break for the most part. So, they'll have a bad spell.
Well, I'll definitely get some title race predictions in just a bit, but I want to stick a pin in Chelsea too and bring up and just kind of expand on your point, Elemi, about Chelsea, because we followed Chelsea a lot last season, specifically when they were under Mauricio Pochettino, questioning their identity, questioning what he was going to do, questioning these players, questioning how much money they spend. And now, even at the start of this season, we questioned how many players they had. The fact that their squad was kind of like the butt of everyone's joke as well. But now, under what's happening under Maresca, the fact that it's such a young squad, as you pointed out, from the Chelsea that ended the season last season to this point now, even with this draw against Arsenal, what's impressed you the most about how they've progressed?
Number one, to me, is how Enzo Maresca has been able to deal with balancing this mammoth squad that you mentioned. Because that was, to your point, it was a joke. We were laughing about they're going to have to buy the entire town of Cobham, not just have the training ground in order to have every Chelsea player available. But Enzo Maresca dealt with the criticism because he did. Many of us, including myself, were trying to figure out how you're going to do this. Too many cooks in the kitchen. It's too much. Mm-hmm. But he did. He rightly set up a precedent where, no, look, guys, some of you are going to play, some of you are not. Some of you, for example, Joao Felix, you're going to be in the Conference League, and you're going to have to wait your time for the Premier League. And then to do that to a young team that's eager, that's willing to prove their point is also remarkable. I've waxed lyrical about Chelsea since the emergence of Enzo Maresca because Janusz has said it in the past, and I agree. They have surprised us in the way that they have learned under him. And I wrote about him last week, how he is a real student of chess. He loves to play chess. Mm-hmm. And he once wrote a thesis on how football equals to chess a little bit. And you can see what he's talking about because he's really interested in making sure that his team understands what they have to do. Now, it's still early, right? It's literally his first season. And they are young and they have to figure it out. But you cannot deny that Chelsea, with 19 points, the same as Arsenal, right, is doing a really, really good job. And yes, I actually think Enzo Maresca is in that dressing room saying, you know what, I'm actually really angry we didn't win this because we could have done it, and they didn't. So I'm impressed by the trajectory. There's still a lot of time to play, but the advantage is that he has a whole other squad for the Conference League. So all he has to do is really just focus to the Premier League and see how far he goes.
Janusz, you were saying?
He should have won the game today. I don't know what's going on there with Nkunku because, I mean, why is he coming in as the last sub and, a couple minutes?
Chelsea's top scorer this season.
Right. I mean, as they said, in our telecast, only one in the league, but 10 goals altogether. As there's a very good player. And I think, eventually it's going to happen. Nicholas Jackson didn't have his best game today. That's for sure. He can play also on the left-hand side because one of the biggest things today, and that's why, maybe that's why the goals it came in, is because Pedro Neto moved on the right side. That, we've seen him on the left side of Wolves when he was at his best. He's good there. But, I watched him, I told you, live in Poland for Portugal because Leao plays there. Pedro Neto has to play on the right-hand side, coming in on his left foot. I think that's his position. And ultimately, I don't know why he hasn't tried Nkunku on the left-hand side as well. Him coming inside. To me, I don't know if there's something in there or what. I really have no idea. why Christopher Nkunku, other than obviously he has some injuries issues, and maybe they're being careful with him, but we're now 10, 11 games into the season. I mean, I think he's pretty good, right? He's shown in the cup competitions that he's ready, and I'm hoping that maybe in the next, after this international break, he's going to feature a lot more, because that's something that Chelsea probably needs. They're good in playing the lines. The one thing that Chelsea or Maresca hasn't seen, it, I don't know if you agree with me, is maybe that, a little bit of a better high press and recovery of the ball coming out of that Pep Guardiola school. That's one thing that that I haven't seen, and maybe that's something that he's still working on. As we've said, what he's done over the course of this very young season, to me, has been exceptional.
Well, Chelsea's still a work in progress, but so far we are liking what we're seeing, especially when you compare it to the last couple of seasons. But let's dive into Arsenal right now, because they truly were the headlines. And I already see the back pages tomorrow are probably just going to be 9 points behind or 9 points off the pace. It's almost like we're talking about them catching up with Man City now in second, as opposed to Liverpool, because 9 points is looking very difficult. Elemi, as Janusz said, that he felt that if Liverpool were to get this gap, then they would just run away with it, or at least Arsenal would be out of the conversation right now. Do you feel like, with what you saw, with what Mikel Arteta has to do to galvanize his team after the international break, is it feeling like too big a mountain yet again for them to climb?
Yeah, you know what, Alexis? Thank God for the international break. Maybe because he can maybe reflect on what's going on. Because I tell you something, ever since the Southampton win, which was like early October, around that time, I haven't been impressed with Arsenal. The loss to Bournemouth, okay, a red card in discipline. As well, Brighton giving away points, of course, losing to Inter and Newcastle, the last two, and now taking this draw. Now, I want Arsenal fans to hear me here. When I say I haven't been impressed, it's because what is your objective? You want to win this Premier League. Well, I tell you something, you're not going to do it with this kind of performance. And then let's hope, for the sake of them, that Bukayo Saka is okay, because obviously he came off this game as well. There's a little bit too much reliance on individual ability sometimes. Bukayo Saka, who leads in assists, Martin Odegaard, like everything he does as an architect in the midfield. And sometimes I feel like you can't just do that if you want to win the Premier League. You have to be more than that. And again, I repeat this, 9 out of 12 goals have been conceded in the second half. That's the highest out of any team in the Premier League. What does that say to me? That your mental strength as the game continues dies down. And that's a big problem for Arsenal if you want to win the Premier League. If you want to have a discussion about making Europe and the Champions League, that's something else. But if you want to win, especially against Liverpool, who is doing wonderful things with Arne Slot. Man City, yes, they're struggling, but they're Man City. They've proven that they can win before. There's other teams doing things mentally, and you're not doing that. And once again, Alexis, here we go again with this broken record. But Kai Havertz only has 4 goals in the Premier League. You have needed a legitimate striker for a long time now. And it's not happening. Let's see what happens in January. But I can pinpoint to that being one of the major issues. It's a big, big thing to do now for Mikel Arteta. And Edu, the sporting director, leaving as well. So you're going to have to reset the table there. There's a lot going on. So that's why I said, thank God for the international break. Let's see what happens.
Well, Janusz, Arsenal now 4 consecutive Premier League games without a win for the first time since April of last year. Look, we talked so much about what Arsenal's downfall could ultimately be. Elemi and I spoke about whether it was the lack of depth in the squad to kind of rival a Manchester City. We've spoken many times again, if it's the mentality that they just don't quite have. We've spoken about the sending offs issue as well. We've spoken about the fact that they concede a lot now in the second half. What is it is it a combination of all of that that's letting Arsenal down on, or what would you put your finger on?
It's a little bit of everything. The squad we've talked about, and you can see it, right? Second one would be they've put themselves in a hole. That's, normally you just play against Manchester City. This time you're playing against 2 teams. It's a lot different, right? And last season, remember, Liverpool were in it for the longest time as well. But, Arsenal, last couple of seasons, Arsenal started, I don't want to say perfectly, but very, very well. They were always there, either at the top or second, couple of points, 1 point behind, 1 or 2 points in front. That's different, right? That momentum kept on going. Now you're already 9 points behind Liverpool. And as you said, Manchester City are going to be in it as well. This is something different. This is something new for Arsenal, because now they have to chase it, and they're not used to that. Manchester City have shown us over and over and over again that they're capable. We don't know if Arsenal has the strength and has the character to now dig deep and be nearly perfect, because you're going to have to be. After this international break, when December comes around, the festive fixtures, I mean, Arsenal is going to have to go on a run of 7, 8, 9, 10 games, very much like Manchester City has done it. We don't know if they're capable of that. Second, defensively, when was the last time they had a clean sheet in any competition? I looked it up. It was PSG. That was, I think, the 1st of December. That's over a month ago when they had a clean sheet. Now, remember, we often talk about Arsenal as this best defense, right, in the league. I mean, and I'm not saying they're not. I mean, Saliba and Gabriel have been outstanding for how long? I understand the suspension in and out, but that happens in the game. Suspensions, injuries, the depth of squad, right? So can they get that back? Because they're going to have to. That's part of going on a good run. Third, it's early, but, look how many freebies they got last year. Their strength, set pieces. Today, only 3 or 4. Against Inter the other day, 13 corners. Don't remember one that was good. Maybe it's too early for me to jump on that, but what I want to say is part of that success was how great they were on the corners and other set pieces. How many free points you get from that. And that sometimes goes away, but again, that's another one kind of against Arsenal and all of it. So it's still very early. I think that point, I want to give Arsenal something there for that, right? Because it could have been a lot worse. Think of the mentality of what happened before this game. And now if they were to lose this game, we'd be sitting here and say no chance. But, point isn't a lot, but it's just enough to keep that going before the international break. Maybe recover some players. Maybe Saka is not as bad as we've seen. Odegaard looked good, but obviously it's going to take a game or 2 or 3 for him to get back in the flow of the game. So it's not great. And it's much, much different than it was in the last 2 or 3 seasons where they were kind of strong, momentum, step by step with Manchester City. But now you have Manchester City and Liverpool, who's looking great so far.
Yeah, and just on the injuries, LME, because of course your thoughts on Odegaard, the fact that he played, what you thought of him as well. If you thought like Janusz that it was good, because we've been talking week after week how much Arsenal were just missing that spark that Odegaard and the leadership as well that he provides. Saka, we're waiting to hear obviously what happens there. Hopefully it's not as concerning as it looked. Another thing, Declan Rice, who played as well, and just before the game, Mikel Arteta said he didn't want to confirm if it was a broken toe or not. That usually tells you all you need to know right there.
It's a broken toe.
It's a broken toe. And if you think that, then he should have taken the risk to play Declan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And obviously, he's also involved with the international setup as well. And I guess they will know more than us. The medical team at Arsenal will know more. And Mikel Arteta had to make that call to see, how he started. But as Janusz said, Moises Caicedo absolutely schooled him for most of this game. And, I think part of it is obviously the way that Moises Caicedo made himself, so strong and confident in the beginning of this game. But at the same time, it's also about Declan Rice is not at 100%. Here's the thing. This is why, again, the international break is going to be good for them, unless, of course, you're required to play for your national team. But the Arsenal squad need to collectively come together and try and do something to make sure that you pick themselves up, because you cannot rely on individual ability all the time. You have to be collectively responsible. The Pedro Neto goal was a perfect example. Kai Havertz, it's literally just staring the Portuguese attacker, just driving towards the box, takes about a year to take the shot and scores. Now, obviously, you need something special to beat David Raya from that, but he did it. But my point is like, I'm not seeing this mental fortitude all the way to the end of the 90 minutes, right? And Janusz is right. I think a point, it's obviously it's better than a loss. And towards the end of that game, they could have even stolen it, because it was a great cross from Saliba. Trossard kind of mishits it, Havertz misses it, and no goal, and that's it, end of the game. So, but a point is a point. But here's the thing, once again, that's not the objective of Arsenal. They want to win this title. And at this point, forget about it. Because even Manchester City, with all their problems, they're doing better than Arsenal. Arsenal have conceded 12 goals. That's only one more goal than Tottenham. And how much do we continue talking about Tottenham's defensive issues? So defensively, they need to figure themselves out. There's a lot going on here, and Mikel Arteta has to sort it out. And again, I hope that they're smart in the transfer window to try and at least strengthen this squad, not just the first 11.
Janusz, in terms of the title race, again, if we're looking just because I saw a comment, not necessarily my opinion, by all means not, but just because you're a Liverpool man as well, and we have to throw them into this chat just because of the title race. But what if some people, some comments are of the view that maybe Liverpool haven't been 100% tested as some of the other teams like an Arsenal. Yes, they've had Chelsea, but we know Chelsea work in progress. Yes, they've had LME's Villa, but you still do, as good as Villa have done, you still do favor Liverpool on paper when you see them go up against Villa. So could Liverpool then come up with sterner tests that would then allow Arsenal to possibly gain some ground on City and the Reds?
Well, they could, but I mean, we obviously the first 4 or 5 games for Liverpool were easier, and Arne Slot has admitted that as much. Of course, he's talked even the other day, but the tests were there. I mean, this is 10, 11 games into the season, so as I've mentioned, Real Madrid comes in. I know it's not the Premier League, but that will tell you a lot. Real Madrid are in trouble, and even more so now. Forget the results, but Militao going out again. They're struggling really to put together a starting 11 there in defense in particular. You win that. If Liverpool win, that gives you incredible momentum. It's just incredible. That will spill out to the Premier League as well. But as I've said, those games at home against Manchester City, imagine they win that, right? Because this is a 3-team race. So that will go a long, long way. Newcastle away, that's never going to be easy. And Everton, away, okay. I mean, it's a derby. You never know. Likely Liverpool are going to be favorites in that game as well because Everton struggles themselves. But that's going to be a real test. But imagine if they go through that somehow. Then it's going to become difficult. So look, I'll wait till December because that's key. For me, I want to see Manchester City more than Arsenal because I think I know what I'm going to get from Arsenal. I'm not so sure I'm going to get from Manchester City, and that's going to make a difference for all of them as well. So as I've said, make zero mistake. This is a massive haul for Arsenal Football Club. They're lacking flow. They're lacking momentum. They are seeing for the first time in a while what it means to lose key players every game, just about, right? Saka today, let's wait and see. We're not doctors here, but that's gonna be important, right? So that's unusual. That's something that we haven't seen. So we have to wait and see how they react. But I do worry for Arsenal at this point, and I thought that perhaps this is going to be the season, and that Edu situation, no matter what, and LME, you've talked about it on Friday in the preview. That's big for me. This is a bad time.
Yeah,
right?
it's a blank page.
Whatever, it's money, whatever we know or we don't know, it makes zero difference. If you're winning, not a problem. If you're losing, people are just going to talk about it, why it happened. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? And just adds to that uncertainty when it comes to a time like Arsenal are going through right now.
Yeah, Alexis, Edu's relationship with Mikel Arteta is notoriously close. Oh, yeah. Like it's a big emphasis.
One of his biggest allies.
Exactly. So to Janusz's point, that when he leaves, now that's asking yourself, why? Obviously, ambitions, personal situation, whatever. But most importantly, now you have to rewrite a blank page of what your vision needs to be. And it's the worst timing possible to do that right now because you're meant to continue on the project this season and what you want to do. Just very quickly on Liverpool regarding the commenter's question. It's a good point because Janusz brings up Real Madrid will be a good test, which is right. And then after that, it's Manchester City. And then after that, it's an emerging Newcastle. We'll see how they continue. And then after that, it's the Merseyside derby. So there are key things. Here, I obviously, I paid very close attention to that victory over Aston Villa yesterday. There were moments when Villa, especially at the beginning of that second half, when Morgan Rogers really should have scored, or at least laid it off to your boy Leon Bailey for a goal, and we could have equalized, right? But I will tell you this, over the course of 90 minutes, alongside Barcelona, I think Liverpool are the best team in Europe right now. Right now, what they're doing. They are magnificent off the ball. And then to add it on the ball, when you have somebody like Lucho Diaz contributing, not just an assist, but scoring. Mohamed Salah, who in the blink of an eye can score your goal. Ryan Gravenberch, who right now is running away with one of the best midfielders in the game. They are a complete package. The key, as Janusz said, is you kind of got to wait until December to see how this continues because I worry about the depth. and I worry about injuries. But there's so many things that Liverpool do so well, and everybody understands the game plan. Curtis Jones, when Bradley came on, they all know exactly what they need to do. Having said that, Villa did have some chances. But Liverpool are going to be tested after this international break. But as long as they continue, we'll see. Right now, if you look at the table, it's not lying to you. Liverpool is the best team in the Premier League. They just going to have to see this because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
The race is not for the swift, it's for he who endures to the end. One final point I do want to think. Oh, I've got some phrases, don't worry. One final point that I just want to stick a pin in, because if Arsenal are to endure to the end, I think they are going to need the man that is Saka. Is he arguably, or not even arguably, just Arsenal's top player, the one that they cannot miss, which is why it would be panic stations if we do find out that this potential knock that he got from Kukureya could keep him probably out to pass the international break. Janusz?
Yes, although he himself hasn't been at absolute best even recently as well, right? But yeah, that strength, you just, I don't want to go on Liverpool, but look at it. I mean, even Liverpool lucky. I mean, but what if they lose Mo Salah? And you still feel better about Liverpool than you may feel about Arsenal or Chelsea or anybody else, right? I mean, Diogo Jota will come back. You have a number of players that can get you through this somehow, right? Defensively sound. You didn't even mention Konate, who's been out of this world as well. So that's why, it's such a long season, and it's a different season than anywhere else because of the intensity of Premier League. Not to mention the Champions League, because all those teams that we mentioned, they think of themselves as favorites to win it. So it's not just participation in these cups, right? And even the League Cup or the FA Cup. These teams do not just participate. They expect to win if they get to the latter stages of that. So that puts additional pressure on clubs like Arsenal and Liverpool and Manchester City as well. So, but there's a story to tell because, I've been here long enough to know if Liverpool, we forgot to mention, I think they have Southampton away. I'm not saying that they're not going to win it, but before they even get to that. So out of respect to them. But, Liverpool loses one game and you know how that goes. All of a sudden it's just 6 points and then everybody gets a little bit nervous and every game is bigger than you actually think it is. So let's just wait and see. But the test of character here for Arsenal is unbelievable. For Chelsea, it's house money. It's still house money. There's no pressure other than what they put on themselves, right? But there won't be a pressure from us as pundits and from anybody else just yet. I think Maresca and Chelsea will get the benefit of the doubt. And right now, they're flying high, right? Chelsea in top 4. Come on. Who would have said that?
Alexis, we have 4 teams with 19 points, 3 teams with 18 points. It's aside from Liverpool and Man City, there is a massive battle going on right now.
Oh, it's been a while, but we're absolutely loving it. So for Chelsea, we're loving the progress that we are seeing according to LME. And of course, for Arsenal, not quite panic stations just yet, although I do have a good friend in Oklahoma who is an Arsenal fan who is very much sat right now at his panic station, but still plenty of football left to be played, and we will be here to discuss and break it all down during and after the international break. Thank you so much, gentlemen, Janusz and LME, and thanks to everyone who's been tuning into this edition of ESPN FC Live, and we'll see you for the next one.